Hello everyone and welcome once again. In this video we are going to continue with the chapter The Lost Child. So before we begin today's class, let's have a quick recapitulation of the previous class. It is the spring season. Since the winter season had just ended, all the people came out of their homes. They were cheerful as the wonderful breeze were inviting them with beautiful weather and environment. People conveyed through different modes: foot, horses, bamboo carts, and bullock carts. A little child was accompanied by his parents. He ran excitedly and often banged into his father's legs. He was full of life, excitement, and laughter. He lagged behind, fascinated by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried at the call of his parents with his obedient feet. He could not suppress his heart's desire to make a request for the toy to his parents, even though he well knew the old, cold stare of refusal in the eyes of his father. The mother became tender and loving due to the cheerful mood. It was a flowering mustard field, pale like melting gold. They seemed like flowing streams of gold and were widespread. A swarm of dragonflies were bustling about on their showy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black bee or butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. When one of them sat somewhere, he tried to catch them, but the tiny creatures would fly away the very moment. The mother called out to him as they started walking down the footpath. So let's begin with the text. He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. "Come, child, come." His parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove, and, forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. But lo, he heard the cooing of doves and ran towards his parents shouting, "The dove! The dove!" The raining petals dropped from his forgotten hands. So now the explanation. The child merrily ran towards his parents. He walked next to them, but after a few moments, he stopped to see the insects that were coming out of the ground. Once again, the child was lagged behind. The parents called him yet again. They sat on the edge of a well under the shady trees. The child then ran and was together with his parent again. As the child entered the shady area of the trees, he was greeted and welcomed by a shower of flowers. He forgot his parents and started collecting the petals that had fallen. Just then, he heard the cooing of doves and was keyed up to see them. He was interested to see them. He started chasing the birds, and in the process, the petals fell from his hand. Hence, the child got attracted towards one thing or the other, and he forgot with what he was attracted earlier. So, back to the text. "Come, child, come." They called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him up, they took the narrow winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard fields. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs converging to the whirlpool of the fair, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, barfi, jalebi, at the corner of the entrance, and a crowd pressed round his counter at the foot of an architecture of many colored sweets, decorated with leaves of silver and gold. The child stared open eyed, and his mouth watered for the burfi, which was his favorite sweet. I want that burfi, he slowly murmured, but he half knew as he begged that his plea would not be heeded because his parents would say he was greedy. So, without waiting for an answer, he moved on. And now the explanation. The parents called the child who was running and playing around a banyan tree. They picked him up and walked down a narrow twisting lane through which they crossed the mustard fields and reached the fair. As they were about to arrive at the fair, the child saw huge masses of people walking from all the directions towards the fair. The dense crowd scared him and he stepped back for a moment. But then in the next moment, he got attracted to the astounding crowd. At the way in of the fair, that means at the entrance of the fair, one corner, a sweetmeat seller had set up a shop. He was selling various sweets like gulab jamun, rasgulla, burfi, and jalebi. The sweets were displayed at a gallery of different heights and were covered with foils of gold and silver. The boy's mouth watered when he saw his favorite sweet burfi. He expressed his wish to get one in a low voice because he knew that his request would not be refuted by his parents. They would say that he was greedy for the burfi, as he did not expect that his demand would be fulfilled. He moved on. And now back to the text. A flower seller hawked, "A garland of gulmohar, a garland of gulmohar." The child seemed irresistibly drawn. He went towards the basket where the flowers lay heaped and half murmured, "I want that garland." But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers because they would say that they were cheap. So, without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green, and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of their silken colors, and he was filled with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. He walked on farther. A snake charmer stood playing a flute to a snake which coiled itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of a swan, while the music stole into its invisible ears like the gentle rippling of an invisible waterfall. The child went towards the snake charmer, but knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such a coarse music as the snake charmer played, he proceeded farther. So the text says that the subsequent stall was that of a flower seller. He proclaimed, that means he announced, that he was selling garlands of gulmohar flowers. The child wanted one of those garlands. He walked towards the basket of flowers and again declared his desire to have one in a low voice because he knew that his demand would not be fulfilled. They would refuse to buy him the flowers as they would say that they were cheap. Again, the boy walked ahead without expecting a reply from his parents. After that, the next thing that the child came across was a balloon seller selling balloons of different colors of the rainbow. The boy was attracted to the shiny colors of the balloons and wanted to have them all. He knew that his parents would not buy the balloons for him, as they would make an excuse that he was too old to play with them. So the child walked further. So now we have the new words that we have encountered in the text so far. The first word is abreast, meaning side by side and facing the same way. That means walking along with the parents, the child was walking. Teeming out, which means to pour out or empty out. All right. Next word is grow, meaning a small wood or group of trees. Next word is capers, meaning a playful skipping movement. Throngs, meaning huge crowds. Converging, meaning gathering. Heeded, that means paid attention to. Next word is overwhelming, which means a very strong emotion. Next word is forbidden, which means not allowed, right? Next word is coarse, meaning unpleasant. Well, before we wind up, we have some quick notes. So the child merrily ran towards his parents and walked next to them, but after a few moments lagged behind. He stopped to see the insects that were coming out of the ground. Once again, the child was lagged behind. The parents called him yet again, and he joined again. They sat on the edge of a well under the shady trees. He was greeted and welcomed by a shower of flowers under the shady trees. He forgot his parents and started collecting the petals that had fallen. Then he heard the cooing of doves and was keyed up. That means excited to see them. The parents called the child who was running and playing around a banyan tree, and the dense crowd scared him and he stepped back for a moment. But the next moment, he got attracted to the astounding crowd. The boy's mouth watered when he saw his favorite sweet burfi. So the next stall was that of a flower seller selling garlands of gulmohar. The next thing that the child came across was a balloon seller selling balloons of different colors of the rainbow. He put up efforts in vain to convince his parents, buying things which he sees in his way, as he knew that his plea would not get fulfilled by his parents. Then he paused at a snake charmer who was playing a flute, and the snake was twisting its neck to the music. It bent and moved its neck gracefully like a swan. It seemed that the music of the flute was heard by the snake's invisible ears and created the effect of a waterfall on it. As his parents had warned him to remain away from the unpleasant music played by such men, he walked further. Well, that's all in this video. I hope you have understood and enjoyed the chapter that has been taught so far. In the next video, we shall be continuing with the concluding part of the story. Till then, thank you.